There's a bruise on the side of my head, less than an inch above the right ear. It's made brushing my hair difficult, a task that already causes a considerable amount of grief for me. My scalp has always been sensitive, even as a child, making even the gentlest haircut into a painful endeavor of ripped follicles and razor burn, as the hairdressers in my area fail to carve through my uniquely curly hair. Pressing my finger against the bruise, testing its tenderness, sends a sharp sensation through my ear and into the center of my temple. And then there's the ringing. But I'm getting ahead of myself. See, the latest installment of the Final Fantasy VII Remake series has recently dropped, at the time of this writing at least, and I found it occupying my mind long after seeing the credits roll. That's nothing new for me. A thinker of a story tends to stay in my head in the time between games, and sometimes as I move on to the next. Considering my quote-unquote next game was another Elden Ring challenge run, my head has been left empty enough to mull around the events that unfolded from Calm to the Forgotten Capital. And then there's the ring. I suppose I should offer a warning here that the following will discuss spoilers across the majority of Final Fantasy VII Rebirth's story, from start to end, including the end in intimate detail. Now is your off-ramp if you're still on your way to the end of that road yourself. This video will still be here, waiting for you to come on my journey through the game along with me. Hello, and welcome to DevBox, where we pick apart our favorite games and see what makes them tick. I'm Prakuza, and today I want to do a deep dive on the character writing of Final Fantasy VII Rebirth. Specifically, we'll be looking at Cloud, his struggles, and dissect a mind swimming in Mako and warped by trauma. Boy, what a heavy topic. But first, let's get some context. Who is Cloud, and where is he on his journey in Final Fantasy VII Rebirth? Well, from one perspective, Cloud is a purple and yellow action figure made of about 15 polygons who spends 40 hours hunting down the sexy silver-haired action figure made of 16 polygons in order to gain his extra polygon and properly bending his wrists. From a real perspective, Cloud is a former member of the Shinra Electric Power Company's private army. He even introduces himself as an ex-soldier, but that topic might be getting ahead of ourselves. And then there's the ringing. Cloud doesn't exactly lead the calm life of a veteran now removed from war. Instead, he takes on work as a mercenary and is joined up with a friendly group of guys and gals looking to spread the word of the lifestream to all of Gaia. Shinra calls them eco-terrorists because they might have possibly blown up a Mako reactor or two, sending the city of Midgar into chaos and maiming and killing dozens of people in the process. But who hasn't committed a war crime or two in the pursuit of environmental stability and spiritual enlightenment? By the time of Final Fantasy VII Rebirth, however, Cloud is still an active member of this terrorist organization and hasn't quite sorted himself out yet. Quite literally, in fact. His memories don't seem to align perfectly with the world around him or the recall of his friends. Moreover, he's been hearing voices and seeing Sephiroth through his travels across Gaia. And then there's the ringing. I'm sorry, I've left you dangling from the topic at the top of this video. The bruise on the side of my head. See, I'm rather used to headaches. It's part of a medical condition inside of my skull that causes a buildup of pressure in my head. My doctors have theorized in the past that my sensitive scalp, so easily damaged by even a gentle press of clippers, is caused by this pressure, but I haven't really followed through with enough treatment to confirm or deny this assumption. Similarly, I can't really say for certain how this excess pressure and pain has affected my mood throughout my life. So, while I'm used to this type of feeling in my head, the bruise is a rather annoying addition to the low-level pain that already defines my existence. Not only that, but it's a frustrating reminder of my own actions that created this new source of distress. Something to fiddle with every time I want to know myself more intimately than I could without it. And then there's the ringing. There are many great moments to pull from in Final Fantasy VII Rebirth to help define who Cloud is, but few are as powerful as his actions in Gongaga. This is where his romantic heart, calloused life as a soldier, and fractured mind all come to a head. Cloud's jealousy and passion blinds him from the emotional turmoil happening in others, specifically Aerith, the target of this insecurity. It isn't the first time that Cloud, being out of harmony with his own emotions, causes a rift between himself and his companions, but it is the one that most critically appeals to his major motivation throughout the game, his feelings for the two women around him. He succumbs to petty jealousy, lashes out against Zack, and then tells Aerith that her first love is both an asshole
Leaving you out in the cold like this? Forget about that loser.
and probably dead.
He's a soldier, right? Then I hate to break it to you, but if he's been gone this long, the man is dead.
One of which is correct, but not what she needs to hear while grieving. It's a point of conflict that weakens him, hurts him, and allows for the dark thoughts to flourish inside his skull. Like before, it also allows a chance for Sephiroth to get into Cloud's head. A few minutes of gameplay later, our hero is so torn he almost kills Tifa, the first love of his life, at the whims of the villain whispering lies into his ears. Of course, there's the Mako poisoning running through his system, but that's simply a catalyst for the turmoil running through his heart and mind. And then there's the ringing. This bruise on my head makes me think about Cloud's journey a lot, not simply because of the cause, but by how I relate to the character, to that insecurity. We all have it, right? Some more than others. A hint of jealousy that sparks when you watch some billionaire house tour on YouTube, or that pang of heartache when that crush starts to fall in love with someone else. It's part of life, especially youth, and to some of us, Cloud and co. might as well be kids. The bruise nags away at that insecurity, showing me exactly how immature I can be at times, even as I watch these children on screen stumbling through their petty dramas and love triangle. Time might make fools of us all, but sometimes I feel like it's passed me by as it played me for a true clown. I might not have Sephiroth whispering in my ear, but there's something in there, egging me on to break things, myself included. And then there's the ringing. From Cloud's early trappings of insecurity and calm and Gongaga, players get a pretty decent view of not only how Sephiroth is waning on our favorite soldier's mind, but also how the world and people he cares about causes him grief. Because that's life. It's a messy thing, with parts that want to be interconnected and move together in harmonious movement like Beethoven's Fifth or some other classical masterpiece. However, all of these parts are moving at different tempos, playing in different signatures, starting at different times. It's discordant, frustrating, it keeps getting in Cloud's way. That is until the final moments of the game when all is lost, Aerith is dead, and Cloud is broken. Remember when I said that few moments in Final Fantasy VII Rebirth are as powerful as Gongaga? Where Cloud's insecurities weaken him to the point of hurting Aerith emotionally and Tifa physically? Well, if there is one moment that hits harder, it's right here at the end. Not at the moment Aerith dies, or even when he sees her wake up somehow. Or when he finds the freaking black materia in his pocket? What the fuck? No. It's when he says the words.
Yep. Sounds good.
This is what a broken mind looks like. It's not the mad ramblings of the men in black robes, the calls for reunion, or even the cackling of the crazed scientist Hojo. No, it is the delusion. The inability to accept the world for the way it is, to the point that Cloud sees a crack in reality that isn't really there. Can speak to the ghost of Aerith as she watches over the friends she loves with all of her heart. Doesn't join in the tears shed by everyone else as they lay the last of the Cetra, their friend, Aerith, to rest. In fact, we don't even get to see Aerith laid to rest. One of the most iconic scenes from the original game. It's gone. And in its place are these few words.
Yep. Sounds good.
This is possibly the best thing Square Enix could have done with revisiting this iconic moment. Moving into the gap before the final game in this new series, Cloud is at the lowest we've ever seen him. Lower than he even was back in the original Final Fantasy VII. It's a powerful and familiar feeling. And then there's the ringing. Of course, watching Cloud lose his mind and delude himself into content mental destruction isn't the end of the story. Neither is it the end of the game. At least, not for someone like myself. Not for the type of person who sees an incomplete playlog at the end of the credits, along with a short list of trophies left for the platinum, and understands what their next few days of gameplay are going to look like. As it may or may not be obvious at this point, I can't say no to a good challenge. And I'm somewhat of a glutton for punishment, So a hard mode run and a platinum hunt were already in the back of my mind while on my first playthrough. I mean, I did it for the remake already, so of course I was going to do it for Rebirth. And of course I'll be attempting it for Re-Death, or whatever the third game will be called, too. After 40 hours spent hunting down side quests, gathering world intel, and reaching the credits on my initial run of the game, the remaining couldn't possibly take that long. Sure, there were still some hard mode minigames to play, a second playthrough to finish on a harder difficulty, and then there's Chadley's Combat Simulator. Remake had most of the same stuff, and its platinum wasn't too hard. A few difficult hard mode chapters and a fight against Bahamut with an insta-kill were the only real obstacles. But even those were more speed bumps than full-on walls. And then there's the ring. Wait, there's no story to look back to now. We've already discussed Cloud's insanity, the driving force behind his broken psyche. So, where's the ringing taking us now? No. We're stuck here now, in this trophy hunt. Buckle in. This ride, this extremely personal one, isn't ending anytime soon. In fact, that initial 40 hours was less than a quarter of the full time I spent on the final few challenges. Sure, hard mode Fort Condor was tough, but the limited form the game took this time around made it a simple handful of attempts. Gears and Gambits is basically Final Fantasy XII on whatever the opposite of hyperspeed is, so I naturally hated it, but that's a personal thing, and was conquered without too much fuss. Also, admittedly, some help from a guide or two. Seriously, I hate Gambits. Couldn't be fucked to actually strategize around that thing. However, nothing compares quite to Chadley's fucking Combat Simulator. Brutal challenge is right. The first speed bump was Hellions Entombment, and it hit hard, costing me hours of trial and error until I figured out the fire elemental strat to absorb most of the damage being doled out by the toughest enemies in the fight. The next bump, well, that was a wall, solid and impassable. If you're still here, or been following Rebirth discourse on YouTube for the last month, then you probably already know that wall. Brutal challenge, Rulers of the Outer World. It is exactly what is on the tin. A brutal challenge that, as far as critiquing goes, maybe I'll say my piece about it later. For now, I want to focus less on how it was designed, but more on how it made me feel. To fail. Over and over and over again. Hours. Days. Weeks. In total, I can approximate that it took nearly 100 hours of attempts to finally get this done. Using a version of the Tifa dive kick method, thanks in no small part to, once again, a guide from another creator here. Celestro. In fact, if anyone coming here is having trouble, feel free to check his video out. I'll have it linked down in the description. It was extremely helpful. For the footage you're currently watching, though, this is my best attempt with a non-broken build to do the challenge quote-unquote legit. This is what I was attempting for weeks until I finally gave up and went for one of the break the game builds. Needless to say, it didn't work. For days. I spent more time on this one fight than I did playing the rest of the game. That fun part of the experience. Specified because this was not fun. Not at all. At a certain point, sunk cost fallacy was more the determining factor than my actual intention to keep playing. This was the final collectible I needed for Johnny's Hotel, and one of the last trophies I needed for the Platinum. Plus, the Gotten Damarung accessory would carry me through hard mode. There was nothing else to be done aside from this. And it sucked. At this point, the game was no longer a joyful experience, but a painful one. For my spirit, for my pride, and the ringing started. See, that's one power of games, of all media, in fact. The ways that it can make a person feel as they experience it. In this case, what I felt, what I feel now thinking back on that fight, is rage. A rage that makes me want to break things. Unfortunately for me, I'm the closest thing around. And now I have a bruise on the side of my head, above the ear, that rings my temple when I press on it. A mark of a shameful moment of weakness, brought on by the dire frustration of trying again and again, only to have even my victories thrown in my face as I ultimately fail to see the end of the road. Before diving into the ludicrous trophy hunt of Rebirth, I was mixed on my feelings for the ending of the game's story. And for a remake taking on a project like the convoluted story of Final Fantasy VII and its extended universe, that is a risk worth taking. However, I couldn't tell if what was lost was worth what was gained. Now though, I connect with this particular change, and the state of Cloud at the end of the game is worth not seeing Aerith's water burial. A quick flash of rage and a ringing in my ears, and I can begin to see through his eyes. Not to compare raging at a game to, well...
My friend. Come. It's time.
But I can relate with the pain, and the desire to shut out the real world for the sake of a calm delusion. The picture painted of Cloud's deteriorating mind, or as Rebirth would phrase it, his degradation, is solid. From the self-doubts, to questioning the reality of Tifa, to losing Aerith because he can't stop Sephiroth, both in his mind and in reality. It's all too much for him to bear, and we're now seeing him at his lowest point in his story. While I can't speak for everyone who played, and certainly for the people who hold the original Final Fantasy VII as the best the series has to offer, this is exactly what I want to see from remakes. Taking risks and reimagining familiar stories with big twists that keep fans of the original guessing. That is how a remake validates its existence beyond simply updating the graphics. And as a wonderful plus, my descent into madness trying to hunt down the Platinum Trophy has helped me understand the broken turmoil going on within the mind of a protagonist whose struggle has made him more compelling than ever. Maybe one day I'll share more specific thoughts on the mechanics and features of that trophy hunt itself. But hey, that's a story for another time.